Hello there viewers and welcome into episode 15 of our F1 Manager 22 save with the Mercedes team. I hope you're doing really well. You are joining us at the best part of the season for us, really. We're in the form of our lives in terms of this car. We seem to be getting the grips of our race pace, which is absolutely amazing, but still got a few issues in qualifying. If you are just catching up and haven't watched the previous episode in Belgium, be sure to go and check that out. Around Spa, there was a real shocking qualifying and some really surprising results with the start of the race grid. A lot of grid penalties for a lot of drivers, and we had a first-time winner as well, and spoilers will be up ahead, so be sure to go and check that out if you haven't watched it already. But we're starting today's episode ahead of the race at Zandvoort, Max Verstappen's home Grand Prix, and I'm sure there's nothing more than the Mercedes faithful would like to get one over on Max Verstappen with his old rival Lewis Hamilton at his home race. Starting off this episode, the refurbishment has been complete of the memorabilia, and we did get an email last time out saying that needed to be done, so good stuff there. Let's check out some emails. Belgian post-race debrief. We noticed that George Russell's defending needs a bit of work. He's got a development point, but let's do that. Defending will go up one more. He's still only 86 rated, so I do wonder what it's going to take to get him towards 87. Nick De Vries has won after a very, very good session in practice one. We're just going to up his smoothness as well. So those are both done. Pierre Gasly scouting has been complete. Let's check his profile. He is willing to come to Mercedes if we wanted him to, so good stuff there. We're not thinking too much just yet about the drivers that might potentially replace Lewis Hamilton, but Charles Leclerc is also open to negotiation as well. The Ferrari has really gone down a notch throughout the course of this season, so it might be time for Charles Leclerc to look elsewhere, see, and could he jump ship and come across to Mercedes? Who knows? We've got some options, but we will consider that if and when the time comes with Lewis Hamilton and his potential retirement, hopefully as an 8-time world champion. Gearbox conditions. So we do have some issues with the gearbox. So as we take a look at the gearbox now, if we go to change, 3 of them have been used and are used pretty badly. So we will need a 4th one here ahead of Zandvoort, and then we'll need to start managing them throughout the rest of the season. If we do want a new gearbox, we might have to take penalties for that. So what we'll do is we'll keep the gearbox and we'll keep everything on for now. The ERS is fine. The engine, I think, is okay. It should be okay for at least one more race, and then we can go back to that one for another one before we need to worry about that. Let's fast forward on towards Zandvoort, and big news is that the front wing design is now ready to be manufactured. That is the last big part I think we have been working on the development of this car. So the board are high in confidence, fantastic. The financial report, let's just check the cost cap. Yeah, we are perfectly fine, still a decent amount there in terms of spend, but again, we don't really want to go over that too much. Or we don't really want to come close to the cost cap. 3 days. The race is today, so we won't have the front wing for the Dutch Grand Prix, which is fine. Let's just, we normally go with 4, or by the time we go 6, because when we add 2 to the car, it leaves us with 4 spare. Emergency, I don't really want to do that at a cost of 3 million. There's no point in rushing it. It's not going to get here in time just for an extra day. So both of the cars will have a new front wing at the next race following this, so we'll confirm that. Same as everything, reach Q3, although we didn't do that last time out with Lewis Hamilton. Reach Q2, we didn't do that with Lewis Hamilton either, and then both drivers in the top 8 once again until we can sort out our single lap pace. I'm a bit concerned about not being in the top 8 with both of these cars. Hot streak 3, finishing position 2, both cars in the top 8, so that gives us a little bit more money there, and now we are ready to head to Holland.
It's another historic weekend of Formula One here at Zandvoort. The track has seen many unforgettable moments, like Gilles Villeneuve's 3-wheeled lap at the 1979 Dutch Grand Prix, which cost him victory. What excitement lies ahead this year? There's never a dull moment at Circuit Zandvoort. It's fast, very fast, with long straights and wide curves. But it also features 2 heavy banked corners, where aerodynamic improvements are sure to help our drivers. With the season nearly concluded, time is running out for the teams. Can anyone make a last-minute breakthrough? Can the leading drivers hold on? Only time will tell. Let the weekend begin!
As hype as ever there from Crofty in his build-up, and as we look at practice sessions, it's all cloudy, so no chance of rain as things stand at the minute. That's okay. Around Zandvoort, track position is probably most important. It seems to be quite difficult to overtake, so we might be in for a long race, especially if we aren't able to start above sort of P4, P5 or something like that. But let's head into practice. What we are going to do is we're going to change George Russell for Nick De Vries. This is his home country, his home Grand Prix. So let's send him out for the first practice. He stepped in for Lewis Hamilton last time out. Let him step in for George Russell this time out, who's probably still celebrating his race win from Spa. Let's head on to practice, and any highlights, once again, I'll bring them to you as part of the session. Right then, starting things off in practice, Nick De Vries come into the pits, a 36% confidence setup on the car, and oversteer is good, so it's not too bad there. The rear wing, we've gone the wrong way with that, so we'll do something like that. The front wing can go up a little bit more. And then you do something like that, and then the front wing there, the rear wing goes down a couple notches. And yeah, we can do something like that for the next run with Nick De Vries. The tires are still okay, they can do another 25 laps, so we will stick him out for 17, and Nick De Vries will go out after his setup has come in. Lewis Hamilton's confidence is bad as well, so let's bring him in. Yeah, as you can see, he's not happy with that at all, although the traction is great. That's good to see. Rear wing, we're going down quite a bit there. The traction is great, so we need to move it a little bit closer, something like that maybe. And the tire camber, maybe somewhere like that, and then the toe out somewhere there. Front wing angle can probably go up one as well. And then we'll send Lewis Hamilton back out as well.
Let's have a look here. This was the Aston Martin.
A huge crash then involving Lance Stroll, who locks up at turn 1 and just smashes right into the wall. And surely that has to be a retirement from the session. Again, that's just a little bit of an issue that I have with the game. Sometimes they don't tend to have as many DNFs as is realistic. But looking at it here, Lance Stroll is out for the session, so that's a good one. Sebastian Vettel, this Aston Martin is very, very poor this year. As we ride along with Nick De Vries, hopefully the fans in Holland are giving him a decent reception here. Obviously, it's the first time that I think he's racing at Zandvoort or involved in Formula 1 at Zandvoort, that's for sure. But yeah, normally the hometown crowd are all in love with Max Verstappen, rightly so, completely understand it. But hopefully they're showing some love to Nick De Vries as well.
Here's the replay. Okay, here's the Ferrari.
A huge crash involving Carlos Sainz, and it's not the first time that's happened this season. He completely locks up, goes off into the gravel. Weird animation there, takes him into the wall. He should be okay to get out and back into the pits for this session. Or does he just continue? There he is. He has no front wing though whatsoever. You can see that completely missing. Sorry, the right hand side of the front wing is completely missing. That will take it some time to recover. Lewis Hamilton's out now in practice. Nick De Vries is currently behind a Haas driver. I think it's Mick Schumacher. So yeah, we are doing our practice sessions pretty well. Still half an hour left time wise, currently sitting in P5 and 6. Nearing the end of practice 1 session then, and we've come away with 80% with Nick De Vries, 3 greats and 2 goods. So once again, his feedback coming in handy there. Let's do something like that on the anti-roll, and then we'll do something like that on the front wing, and then tire camber probably stay the same. So let's try something like that. The tires, I don't think we're going to go back out again for another run. I don't think there's enough time, but we will drop it down to 10 laps just in case. We'll confirm that there's 19 minutes left, so you never know, we might be able to get a few laps in with Nick DeVries. Lewis Hamilton is staying out for a little while just to get that track acclimatization up. The tires are worn, but he should be fine. We're just going to keep him out and bring him in at the end of the session to change the setup.
So this was the Aston Martin.
So Sebastian Vettel then, at the end of practice 1, has crashed in the exact same way that Lance Stroll has. Although it wasn't as impactful, I don't think. He should be able to continue for the remainder of the session. But this Aston Martin season goes from bad to worse. No, both of them are out at turn 1. Nick DeVries is coming around for his final couple of laps. 3 minutes to go before we head into practice 2. DeVries is currently down in P7. Lewis Hamilton in the garage, currently sitting in P5. 0.7 of a second of Charles Leclerc, who has to bounce back. Him and Max Verstappen have been on a poor run of form recently. Halfway through practice 2 and not really much to report so far. 2 optimals, a great and 2 goods for George Russell as he's back in the car for his session, obviously with Nick DeVries replacing him in practice 1. But yeah, we just need to mess around with it a little bit more. But 82% on the confidence is not too bad for George Russell. And on the other side of the garage, Lewis Hamilton has an optimal, 3 greats and a bad, so that oversteer isn't really doing too much. Let's head back up that way with the front wing towards sort of the maximum. And we'll send it back out. But 80% of the 2 sessions, not the best. Track acclimatization, he's on 46%. So George Russell and Lewis Hamilton can both stay out until the end of the session. End of the session then in practice 2 for both drivers. And Lewis Hamilton currently sitting in P7 behind Valtteri Bottas and Pierre Gasly. But they've done their runs on the softs. We've been on mediums for the whole session. George Russell currently down in P9 behind Fernando Alonso. So again, not the best pace-wise, but we are doing much longer runs here, which isn't really a surprise considering our race pace has been much better than our qualifying pace. On to practice 3 and then qualifying itself. I'm thinking that we're probably fighting for at best P4 maybe, unless there's anything crazy that happens either with the weather or with traffic. But yeah, I think P4 and P5, or more likely P5 and P6, is where we're going to probably qualify here. In practice 3, Lewis Hamilton's got a 96% set up then, 2 optimals and 3 greats. So we might have to be okay with that because we do want to now focus on the track acclimatization. We're going on to the hard tires with Lewis Hamilton, and then run plan. We're going to go as long as possible. So we're going to put in 50 laps worth of fuel. He won't be very quick, but that's fine. We just need to do as long a stint as possible. George Russell is currently only on 35% track acclimatization, and his setup isn't the best. He's only in sort of the mid to high 80s. So we've still got some work to do on his setup, and George Russell will need to stay out for a long time. But Lewis Hamilton, 96%. That's probably the best I think we'll be able to do with him. Okay, well, the session was abruptly red flagged at the end of that session as Max Verstappen had a crash. I think it must have been Max Verstappen, surely. I don't think it was anyone else. Session suspended, cars returned to the pit lane, and that was it with 10 minutes to go. We didn't see what happened, but it does say Max Verstappen there with a huge X. And yeah, oh, I think George Russell had a crash with Max Verstappen. Looking at it here, George Russell would have been involved because the tires is on 0%. So George Russell and Max Verstappen have had a bit of an incident. Okay then, I'm not too sure what has happened there, but Lewis Hamilton P5, George Russell P9. We didn't really get a chance to do anything in the final parts of that session with the final 15 to 10 minutes all cut off. Lewis Hamilton's only on 83% track acclimatization. George Russell's only on 50. That's the worst we've been all season. 86% on the setup for Lewis. 87% on the setup for George Russell. So I am not expecting this race to be a positive one. We're going to head into qualifying. We have to remember to change our engine parts to make sure that we do have the freshest parts possible because they are worn. But yeah, a really strange end to practice there. Just ahead of qualifying then, a new gearbox has been installed on Lewis Hamilton's car. And we will do the same for George Russell as well. Though it says car parts missing. His engine is completely blown up. Wait, what? Terminally damaged car parts must be replaced before the car can return to track. So his engine's completely gone. What on earth happened with Max Verstappen? That is a crazy, crazy incident. Well, we only have a worn ERS. Are we gonna have to buy a new ERS for George Russell? Does that might mean a penalty for George Russell? If you use another of this car part in any session, it will exceed the limit and incur a grid penalty. Well, because of this incident that we know nothing about, we're gonna have to incur a grid penalty. We have to. So there's a new ERS. George Russell is going to be deducted. Oh, I think it's five places. The gearbox is finished. Thankfully, we've got a brand new gearbox that we can install. But yeah, I don't know what on earth happened there with Max Verstappen. But everything else on his car seems to be okay. That's just a really, really strange incident. But let's start qualifying. You've installed a new powertrain car part, which exceeds the season limit and will incur a grid penalty when used in the session. So it looks as though George Russell's probably going to finish qualifying and start the race in about 11th. Coming towards the end of Q1 then, George Russell currently up in P4, Lewis Hamilton in P5. Both of them are in the garage, only done one run so far. I think we should be okay to get through to Q2, but we won't risk it. We will send them back out on the used set of soft tyres. I'm still so confused about the crash that happened with George Russell, but it was big enough to make him replace his whole engine. So it's something pretty serious. We've sent them both out. How is he getting along in Sector 1? He's gone green, so that is a personal best for him. George Russell, let's see how he's doing. Around the banking here at Zandvoort, really nice part of the circuit. Does he go green at the end of Sector 1 as well? The used tyres, again, coming in handy to end qualifying 1. Yes, he does. So we're doing pretty well so far. I think we're fine. Alonso's qualified and hasn't gone above us, so and neither is Esteban Ocon. Carlos Sainz improves a little bit, but still stays in P3. We are through safely to quali 2, even though we're still just going to finish this run of our quick lap. Lewis Hamilton comes across the start-finish line, was 0.6 of a second off of Charles Leclerc in P1, still 0.6 of a second off Charles Leclerc in P1. Both drivers are out then on their final flying lap of Q2, currently sitting P5 and P6, half a second off Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc and the Ferraris at the front. Yeah, I definitely don't think we'll be challenging for pole again this weekend, so we still have some work to do on the upgrades of the car. Lewis Hamilton should be fine to get through to Q3, but we have sent him out on a fresh set of tyres. Same with George Russell as well. It's interesting, George Russell seems to have the better of Lewis Hamilton throughout this qualifying. I don't know if maybe it's just because of the new gearbox and the new ERS that he's got. It could be, but he seems to have the pace this weekend and might out qualify Lewis Hamilton, I think only for the second time this season. I don't know if there are any stats that you can see on this game about that. That's something also I would like to be added, as Lewis Hamilton crossed the line still half a second but slower than George Russell, who is going a little bit better through Sector 2. But yeah, if there is a way to find out your teammate stats in terms of like results and qualifying, do let me know in the comment section down below, because it would be nice to compare how George Russell and Lewis Hamilton seasons are going as George Russell improves and edges a little bit further away from Lewis Hamilton. Both cars into Q3. Final flying laps then of Q3, and Charles Leclerc is currently on provisional pole position in the Ferrari, but only just ahead of teammate Carlos Sainz, who has been flying all weekend this weekend. The Ferrari looks great around here. Sergio Perez currently out qualifying hometown favourite Max Verstappen, but on our side of things, Lewis Hamilton is going better than his previous lap. George Russell has gone slower through Sector 1, so there is an opportunity here for Lewis Hamilton to out-qualify his teammate, although George Russell has been the better of the two drivers for most of the qualifying sessions. Lewis Hamilton comes around the final corner, heads towards the start-finish straight and crosses the line. He improves his time and doesn't out-qualify George Russell. George Russell has had the pace this weekend to better his teammate, and I think that is the best case scenario for these two Mercedes boys, as Charles Leclerc qualifies on pole position. It's a Ferrari 1-2 ahead of the race, unless George Russell can provide something spectacular. He doesn't. He does improve his time and is up in P5. Oh, it's not a 1-2 for Ferrari. Max Verstappen pulled something completely out of the bag. Where did that come from, Max? Fair enough. What a brilliant lap that is. He starts on the front row next to Charles Leclerc. George Russell, I think, takes a 5-place grid penalty and will start in P10. Lewis Hamilton's been out-qualified by George Russell, I think, for only the second time this season.
Welcome to race day. And before we get down to it, last-minute checks are being made.
We saw a reasonable push from Mercedes in qualifying, and they'll have plenty of opportunities here to achieve a great result. These past few days, Ferrari have been absolutely thrilling their fans. Now let's see if they can make the Tifosi proud by capitalizing on that grid position. We've been having sunny weather here today, but there are some clouds looming that might complicate things for teams further down the line.
So let's see how the teams tackle this race today here at the Dutch Grand Prix.
Right, here we are then ahead of the Dutch Grand Prix, and we've qualified P5 and P6, which not the best considering our recent run of results, but George Russell, who has an engine penalty, won't even start in P5. He will go down to P10, I believe it is. Strategy-wise, is there anything we can really do? Do we go super aggressive and go on the 2-stop? Potentially 1-stop soft onto hard. We do have a fresh set of soft tires, so it is a possibility. George Russell's down in 10th. I'm not too sure he'll be able to make up that time, to be honest. It might just have to be a soft onto hard compound race, 1-stop strategy. Or do we just go for it? I think we're going to have the pace to finish 5th and 6th regardless. So we might as well just try, I guess. So Lewis Hamilton is going to go P5, 2-stop, softs onto mediums onto softs. And we're going to look to go aggressive, basically, for the whole stint. Aggressive, attack, and then aggressive. Or we can attack towards the end. So we'll do that with Lewis Hamilton. And George Russell will do the same thing, because why not? George Russell might have more to lose, because obviously he's going to be starting in P10, I think it is. I think it's a 5-place grid penalty. And we will do that. And again, we'll go aggressive. Attack on the mediums, and then aggressive again. So we'll update both of those. We might be the only ones on a 2-stop strategy, who knows, but it's really the only way I think we can get any points, and we do have a fresh set of softs to use. So let's get into the race and hope that this aggressive strategy helps us out. It's helped us in the past, so fingers crossed here.
Now we should have good weather for the race, and that will be welcome news for the teams. And here we've got Lewis Hamilton. With a top 10 position on the grid, this race could really go either way for them. And here we can see Russell. They're starting in the bottom half of the grid today, so there's a lot of cars between them and the podium. The teams are ready to go. The drivers are ready, and the crowds are waiting. It's the Dutch Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
Right, so George Russell wasn't a 5-place grid penalty. It was actually a 10-place, as he starts in P15. He's up to, or P14. He's up to P13 already, so it's a decent start. Lewis Hamilton, following behind the Red Bull of Sergio Perez, gets around him as George Russell overtakes Lando Norris. Is that off the start line? Yes, it is. Decent start there by George Russell. Dives down the inside and is up into P13. Good stuff there for George. Lewis Hamilton, back down to P5, is battling it out with Sergio Perez. Let's take a look at some of the tyre choices here. The front three have gone on to medium. Sergio Perez is on used softs. And then Kevin Magnussen is the midfield leader on the softs, as George Russell has overtaken Zhou Guanyu. It's a good start here for the Mercedes man. George Russell, well done him. If he can get a couple more, if we can close up to the back of Kevin Magnussen and pass him, then that should be decent. But remember, we're doing a 2-stop. I imagine that everyone else will be doing a 1-stop strategy. Let's take a look again. George Russell around the inside, down the inside of Zhou Guanyu. Good start for George Russell, up 2 places. Daniel Ricciardo creating a little bit of an incident there. Lucky not to go into the wall. George Russell has been making some steady progress past Ocon, past Tsunoda. He's up into the points now in P10, whereas Lewis Hamilton is still stuck behind Sergio Perez. As things stand, we might need to save some fuel because for some reason we are losing quite a bit of fuel doing this strategy. Max Verstappen leads the Dutch Grand Prix. He's overtaken Charles Leclerc in the opening parts of this race, but we're watching a race change happen here. Charles Leclerc with the DRS goes around the outside of turn 1. They're still wheel to wheel though, side by side. This is brilliant racing between Verstappen and Leclerc. 2 title challengers, of course, alongside Lewis Hamilton. This could be a big opportunity for them to strike back. Max Verstappen is now down in 2nd place, but Carlos Sainz is now going to put him under pressure. The home faithful are not going to be happy with this. If both Ferraris finish ahead of Max Verstappen, we're currently just waiting for a mistake or something to pounce on. We don't have the pace really to keep up with this front 5. While we're in DRS though, we should be okay for a little while longer. I just need to hope that these tyres don't really drop off performance wise ahead of our first stop. George Russell, he's right behind Kevin Magnussen, so if we can get by Magnussen and then also get by the Alpine of Alonso and Bottas, we're potentially on for that P5 and P6 that I suggested.
We can take a look now. Now, just watch the Mercedes here.
Oh, look at that beautiful driving by George Russell. Down the inside of turn 1, he managed to overtake both Magnussen and Fernando Alonso. What a fantastic overtake that is by George Russell. He's now up into P8. Lewis Hamilton still right behind these guys out in front. We do need to start, again, thinking about fuel. We won't worry about it just yet because really and truly, we don't really need to. Sergio Perez is really pushing his tires hard, so maybe he's going for a 2-stop strategy as well. He's on 73%, so we can attack a little bit with Lewis Hamilton. Let's take a look. Lewis Hamilton's ahead of the curve when it comes to his tires. So is George Russell, so we can consider attacking now for the final little stint of this tire. Lap 10, and Charles Leclerc still leads just ahead of Max Verstappen. You can see them fighting out in front. Max Verstappen's defending from Carlos Sainz as well, as George Russell sets the fastest lap of the race, but he's under attack from Valtteri Bottas. It wasn't Valtteri Bottas actually attacking George Russell, it was George Russell getting past Valtteri Bottas for P7. But that is some good recovery work there from George Russell. Obviously started back in P13, I think it was, or P14. As we fast forward through the race, he's up in P7. Lewis Hamilton still in P5, right behind this leading group of cars. Here goes George Russell. DRS is open, pulls up alongside. You can see there in the dust goes Pierre Gasly, and George Russell is now up into P6.
We've had a big crash here.
Yep.
Let's take a closer look. Let's have another look. Science is the focus here.
Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez are out of this race as Sergio Perez locks up, smashes into the back of Carlos Sainz. Oh my god, what a crash. I can't believe that's happened there. The Ferraris were on course for a 1-2, and just like I was asking for,
Understood.
the luck has come on to Lewis Hamilton's side and George Russell. George Russell has had fantastic pace all weekend. What lap are we on right now? We are on lap 15. We're behind a safety car. Right, the hard tires how far can they go? We're on lap 15. Do we box in with George for hard tires now? That is probably the question. And it's a bit, no, we won't get a free pit stop because Pierre Gasly is there. What do the guys out in front do? This will probably make my decision when it comes to George Russell. We're going to have to be able to react pretty quickly here. Lewis Hamilton isn't going to come in. He's going to stay out. He's on the soft tire. These guys out in front are on the mediums. I think we'll stick with the 2-stop for Lewis, but George Russell, do we come in for hards now? No, it's a little bit too early. We're behind the safety car, so we're going to conserve some tires now. Right, lap 16 and the safety car is in this lap. George Russell is behind Lewis Hamilton on the road. P3 and P4 with both of our drivers this race right behind the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, as well as the race leader and hometown favorite Max Verstappen, who is now the safety car, and he hits the accelerate. He is gone. We've deployed some ERS with both of our drivers. We're going to knock it back down to neutral because we wanted to try and get the jump on the leaders. It's not managed to work out. Currently, Lewis Hamilton is now looking around the outside of the banking here. It's close with Charles Leclerc. There's brilliant driving from both of them. We're going to push now until the end of this stint. We can maybe extend it by another lap or two, considering the safety car came out. But P3 and P4 on the road, much better than I expected, all thanks to that massive crash between Sergio Perez and Carlos Sainz. I can't believe Sergio Perez done that. Right, so on lap 23, some of the midfield drivers have come in to the pits. Lando Norris has come in and he's on mediums, and Mick Schumacher's come in on mediums as well. I don't know if they had an incident or if it's just a very early pit stop. Lewis Hamilton is still keeping right on the back of Max Verstappen, and George Russell is right on the back of Lewis Hamilton. I think with George Russell, we are going to switch to a one-stop. I think we're going to switch to a one-stop. And I think we're going to try and make these tyres last for another 5 laps or so before coming in for the one-stop. Because of that safety car, we managed to do brilliantly on the tyre saving. So now that's really brought us into play. Lewis Hamilton, I think, will stick with the 2-stop because he needs to be quite aggressive. We won't have the pace to get past this Red Bull and this Ferrari just on pure speed. So if he wants to win this race, I think we're going to have to stick with the 2-stop strategy with Lewis. As you can see, Max Verstappen looking down the inside there of Charles Leclerc. They're still side by side. Charles Leclerc gets on the accelerator. And yeah, brilliant driving from the two of them there. Lewis Hamilton is going to come in and box this lap. We've managed to make it work a little bit more. Estimated exit position is 17th, so maybe it's not smart to do that. We're going to do it anyway, and hopefully a few of the other midfield drivers do come into the pits. I have a slight feeling then that we've maybe gone a little bit too early here with Lewis Hamilton, because the safety car would have bunched everyone up. And no one else has come into the pits just yet. Hopefully we can get into some clean air. If we can get out behind Ricciardo and ahead of Latifi, that would be good. I don't think we'll be able to though, as the two Williams come out there. Can we get out ahead of them? Oh, that's brilliant. P12 for Lewis Hamilton. Some clean air out in front. George Russell on the soft tire. If we can keep him in DRS, we're going to deploy in DRS range of Lewis Hamilton. Sorry, not Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen. We should be okay switching to the one stop and matching the leaders. Lewis Hamilton, now is hammer time. Right, so here come some of the early runners then for the pit stops. Daniel Ricciardo's come into the pits. Kevin Magnussen's come into the pits. Alexander Albon's come into the pit, so has Lance Stroll. They're all coming out on the hard tyre, so it is coming to the time for George Russell to pit soon. He's got one more lap, I think, one more lap of absolute pushing. Lewis Hamilton's in P10. Everyone out in front, so Noda, Zhou Guanyu, Ocon, Bottas, Gasly and Alonso all need to pit. Hopefully we can get by them as quickly as possible. George Russell, we are going to box you this lap for hard tires, and you are going to go on to the end of this race. We have to watch out for that 30% mark where the soft tires do drop off. George Russell then comes into the pits at the exact same time as your race leader Max Verstappen. This has probably worked out very well for George Russell, and I think Lewis Hamilton is not going to get out ahead of his teammate, which is going to be a surprise unless there's something crazy here. Oh, he does get out ahead of George Russell. Does he get out ahead of Max Verstappen? Where is Max? Max gets out ahead of the traffic, But Lewis Hamilton has to box again. We need to start going aggressive now on these tyres because we need to clear this traffic as quickly as possible. George Russell, he's lost some time in that, where he's now behind Lewis and also behind the traffic. He has to clear that and get onto the back of Max Verstappen as quickly as possible. Right, Charles Leclerc is coming out of the pits now. Where does he feed in this race as Max Verstappen is speeding down the start-finish straight? In comes Zhou, in comes Tsunoda. Lewis Hamilton has been freed. So is George Russell. And Charles Leclerc is out ahead of Max Verstappen. That's both of their stops done. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton are stuck behind Esteban Ocon. So our race has been heavily compromised. We were right behind that battle for the race lead, and coming out in traffic has really not helped us at all. With 40 laps to go in this race, I don't know if this two-stop strategy with Lewis is going to work unless these medium tyres have some incredible pace that I am not too sure if they have. So we might have to stretch these mediums all the way if we do want to finish P3 and P4. And George Russell switching the strategy onto the hards has worked out very well for him halfway through this race.
Now watch this. Lewis Hamilton involved in this one.
Right, it'll be interesting to see now just what the true pace of Lewis Hamilton is. He's in clean air on the fresher medium tyres. Can he close up onto the back of the race leaders? We're going to go aggressive just a little bit and see if we can close that gap. 86% tyre wear. We might have to stop again anyway, but if we do, we need to at least consolidate P4. George Russell, he needs to get by Esteban Ocon quick, who started on the hard tyre. He's on a different strategy to everyone, it seems, and he's doing a pretty decent stint, so he's not coming into the pits anytime soon. Stroll has had a crash at the exact same place at turn 1 that he had the crash in practice. It's a massive crash. That should be a retirement for Lance Stroll, although he's managed to keep it on the track. Yeah, he's out and about with half a front wing. Fair enough. Lance Stroll is going to probably come into the pits then. Lewis Hamilton has been putting in some decent lap times, but not really as quick as we need if we want to win this race. 5 seconds off the race lead. George Russell's been saving some battery for a little bit later in the race. We're going to change that now. We are going to attack with Lewis Hamilton and see if we can do anything about this, because the two-stop doesn't seem to have worked now that this safety car did come out. All of a sudden, Lewis Hamilton is flying fastest lap of the race, but he's still only 6 seconds off the lead. If we were to box him now, where would we come out? Let's take a look. He would come out in a roundabout P9. So we still need to keep him out for a few laps left. There's 30 laps in this race. George Russell is now in the middle of nowhere. He's currently in P4, just looking after the tyres. He could have an easy podium here if the strategy with Lewis Hamilton doesn't go according to plan. But P3 and P4, I really can't complain about that. When you ask at the start of, if you were to ask me at the start of qualifying, or at the start of the race even, with George Russell down with a 10-place grid penalty and no real pace for Lewis Hamilton over qualifying, yeah, I think we've done okay if we come away with a P3 and P4. Max Verstappen 2 seconds off Charles Leclerc, who is your race leader here at Zandvoort.
Now, just watch the Mercedes here.
Oh, Lewis Hamilton really lucky not to go into the wall there. He ran wide. He's pushing a little bit too hard maybe on these tyres, but it's the only way that we can potentially get this race win, unless we hope for a safety car. Let's drop it down to standard. Let's try to eke out the tyres for as long as we can, because if there's a safety car, then we are potentially back in it if we slap on the soft tyres. So yeah, we're going to go down to standard, maybe make these tyres last for another couple of laps. Right, lap 56 then, and there's been no sign of a safety car. So Lewis Hamilton is going to come in after a few more attack laps. George Russell, he is absolutely comfortable in P4, ahead of Fernando Alonso, who is ahead of Pierre Gasly. Out in front, Max Verstappen's been dropped by the Ferrari. Charles Leclerc has had incredible pace all weekend, and he's now nearly 4 seconds clear of the Dutch driver. But Lewis Hamilton, unfortunately, that going off wide has maybe messed up his attack just a little bit. Right, Lewis Hamilton is coming into the pits this lap for the soft tyres there. We don't have another. We started on a fresh set of softs, so we don't have another fresh set of softs. He needs a mega in lap now. We're on attack. We're going to go on push with the fuel. And we're also going to deploy some ERS just to try and clear the Alonso, Gasly, Bottas haggle of cars if we can. But we're potentially being held up here by the Williams. If we can get a little bit of DRS and get by the Williams beforehand, that would be fantastic. Can you move out of the way, please? Can you move out of the way, please? Can you move out of the way, please, Williams? You're always in the way. Thank you very much. The blue flags need to be out a little bit quicker, but we're not worried about the tyre temperatures just yet because Lewis Hamilton is going to just push now until the end of this lap, and then we're going to drop it down to standard and drop that down to balanced for when the when the soft tyres get put on. We don't want them to be overcooked just yet either. So here comes Lewis Hamilton for his second scheduled stop. Where is he going to come out? He's definitely going to come out behind George Russell, who has had a comfortable race afternoon ever since overtaking everyone at the start. George Russell up into P3. Although there's 10 laps left, we could have a massive race on our hands with Lewis Hamilton for the final podium spot. Out comes Lewis, and yeah, he is ahead of Fernando Alonso and Pierre Gasly. 8-second gap for Lewis behind George Russell. George is on used hards, Lewis is on softs. It's game on for P3. There are 2 laps to go then on this race, and Lewis Hamilton is 2.8 seconds behind George Russell, and George Russell is starting to feel the tyre wear a little bit, whereas Lewis Hamilton is free to attack. Will we get some last lap drama here? We're going to go on aggressive with George Russell as well, since there are only 2 laps left. We've just started the final lap of this race, and we're putting both of them on push, and Lewis Hamilton has just set the fastest lap of the race. 1.3 seconds is the gap, and Lewis Hamilton is on the soft tyre. Out in front, there is no such issue as Charles Leclerc comes around the banking for the final time this afternoon. We're going to put Lewis Hamilton back on harvest, but Charles Leclerc wins the race here at Zandvoort, and he takes home the full 25 points. Max Verstappen currently in P2, but George Russell, can he hang on to a podium? You can see Lewis Hamilton is gaining. It's 1.2 seconds. Who's going to take the final step on the podium here? George Russell. We're going to deploy all of the ERS battery. He's got a full battery for a reason. Go for it, George. Will you hang yourself on the podium as he comes around the final corner? 1.1 seconds. If there was one more lap, Lewis Hamilton would have got it, but it's George Russell in P3 on the 3rd step of the podium. A great drive from him. Good strategy call by us to give him the 1 stop. Lewis Hamilton unfortunately got a bit misled with that 2-stop strategy. That's kind of our fault, but I do think that 3rd place is probably the best we could have accomplished anyway. We didn't have the pace to keep up with the front 2. Fernando Alonso in P5. A good drive from him. Valtteri Bottas comes across the line in P6 ahead of Pierre Gasly in P7. Esteban Ocon in P8 taking home a couple of points. P9 Daniel Ricciardo, good drive from him to get some points for McLaren, and Kevin Magnussen comes home with a final points pay-in position.
And here today, George Russell making British motorsport proud. Never have a team been more deserving of a podium. Everyone must be ecstatic. And right now, it's the British driver who proudly takes his place on the podium. And after all that hard work, surely it's time for them to enjoy this moment. This was a good weekend for Mercedes, with the results to match.
I agree, this was all very impressive, and it's obviously the work of a solid, well-run team.
At the end of the weekend, it's second place in the constructor standings for them.
We now look ahead to the next round in Monza in Italy. The Temple of Speed is waiting, and the teams will be ready and raring to go.
At the end of that race, then, Charles Leclerc comes home in first place, Max Verstappen in second. Obviously, the home fans very, very disappointed with that, and George Russell taking the third step of the podium here at Zandvoort. Brilliant drive for him, considering he started down in P14 following that grid penalty. We still don't know what happened with Max Verstappen, as I've dropped my phone there. I do apologise. Lewis Hamilton in P4, Fernando Alonso P5, Valtteri Bottas P6, Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon and Daniel Ricciardo rounding out the points, with Kevin Magnussen and Lewis Hamilton done fantastically well there to get the fastest lap of the race. What that means then for the drivers' standings is Charles Leclerc has now retaken the lead of this drivers' championship with 4 wins on the season, 10 podiums. Some good driving from him. Lewis Hamilton still has the most wins this season of any driver. So fantastic consistency from him, and Max Verstappen has closed the gap on Lewis Hamilton in third place. George Russell has left Sergio Perez in the distance, whose poor form absolutely continues to plummet. He's now looking forward ahead for Carlos Sainz, and if he can be Mr. Consistent like he has been all season, that 4th spot in the driver standards could be George Russell. With 7 podiums this year, he is up there for most this season. Charles Leclerc has 10, Max Verstappen has 9, and then there's the 2 Mercedes with 7 apiece. And he also has the most fastest laps this season as well. So there is some performance in there for George Russell. Constructors-wise, we open up a little bit more of a gap on Red Bull by 10 points. And we close the gap on Ferrari just by 3. So nothing too major, but some good points all around. Development-wise, Lewis Hamilton doesn't have any development points. Neither does George Russell or Nick DeVries. But it's been absolutely positive set of results this weekend. And Nick DeVries, obviously, in practice, doing very well in front of his home fans. But as we continue on, then the sponsorships has been paid out. All of ours coming in, fantastic from us, and congratulations to George Russell getting his bonus of a podium. Fantastic stuff from us then, and as we head on to the next race, the research has been completed on the next season chassis. We might need to do a little bit more towards the end of the season, but in the meantime, I just want to say thank you once again for all of your support before we head to the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, the home of Ferrari. I do hope that you are staying safe, staying well, and yeah, thank you so much for your support. If you are new around here, hit the subscribe button for regular F1 Manager content, and hit the like button if you are enjoying the series and enjoyed this episode. But in the meantime, I'll see you for the next one.